Let's be real, my parents weren't exactly the warm and fuzzy type. They were more into things, you know? Fancy cars, designer clothes, expensive vacations. They loved the whole look how rich we are vibe. Me? I was never really part of that picture. I was more like the awkward background character in their glamorous movie. Growing up, it was always about what I didn't have. The latest iPhone? Maybe when your grades improve, Alexa? Designer jeans like all the cool kids? Don't be ridiculous, those are way too expensive. A trip to Disneyland with my friends? We have a perfectly good vacation planned already, Alexa, to the Bahamas with us. Yeah, because hanging out with my parents in the Bahamas was totally the same as going to Disneyland with my friends. My parents weren't mean, exactly, they just didn't really get me. They didn't understand why I preferred reading a book to shopping for shoes, or why I'd rather spend time volunteering at the animal shelter than attending some fancy gala. They saw me as a disappointment, a bit of a weirdo, someone who didn't quite fit into their perfect little world. So when my grandfather, Grandpa Edward, passed away, I wasn't expecting much. He was loaded, seriously rich, but he always preferred my dad, the responsible one, the one who followed in his footsteps and joined the family business. I figured they'd get the mansion, the yacht, the whole shebang. I'd probably get a nice watch or something. No biggie. The reading of the will was, well, it was a shock, to say the least. We all gathered in this stuffy lawyer's office, my parents all smiles and anticipation, me feeling like I was about to get a lecture about my lack of ambition. The lawyer, this serious-looking guy with a voice like dry toast, started reading. And then, the bomb dropped. To my beloved granddaughter, Alexa, he read, I leave my entire estate, including all assets, properties, and investments. The room went silent. I blinked. Did I hear that right? Everything? To me? I looked at my parents, expecting them to be happy for me, or at least, surprised. But their faces were contorted, like they'd just swallowed a whole lemon. My mom was the first to speak. What? She shrieked, her voice cracking. This can't be right. My dad jumped up, his face red with fury. This is outrageous, he yelled. Alexa, what did you do? Do? I said, genuinely confused. I didn't do anything. Grandpa Edward left me his inheritance. That's what the will says. You must have tricked him, my mom accused, her eyes narrowed. You must have manipulated him into leaving everything to you. Manipulated him? I repeated, my voice rising. How could I manipulate him? I barely saw him. You were the ones who were always visiting him, always trying to impress him. Don't be ridiculous, Alexa, my dad snapped. You're just a child. You don't understand these things. This inheritance belongs to us, to your mother and me. It doesn't, I said, my voice firm, even though my insides were shaking. It's mine. Grandpa Edward left it to me, and if he wanted you to have it, he would have said so. The argument escalated from there. They yelled, they threatened, they pleaded. They called me ungrateful, selfish, manipulative. They demanded that I hand over the inheritance, that I sign it all over to them. But I refused. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about respect, about Grandpa Edward's wishes, about finally having something that was mine, something they couldn't take away from me. They stormed out, furious, their faces contorted with rage and disappointment. You'll regret this, Alexa, my dad spat, his voice venomous. You'll regret this for the rest of your life. I stood there, alone in the lawyer's office, the weight of their words hanging heavy in the air. I had no idea what the future held, but one thing was certain. My life had just changed forever. The car ride home was tense, to say the least. My parents were fuming, their faces like thunderclouds, the silence punctuated by angry mutters and the occasional slammed fist on the dashboard. I sat in the back, feeling like I was in the middle of a tornado, all swirling emotions and deafening noise. The moment we stepped inside the house, the storm broke. My mom turned on me, her voice sharp as broken glass. Alexa, how could you? She shrieked. How could you do this to us? Do what? I asked, my voice small, my heart pounding. I didn't do anything. Don't play innocent with us, my dad roared, his face red with fury. You manipulated Grandpa Edward. You poisoned his mind against us. Poisoned his mind? I repeated, incredulous. That's ridiculous. I barely even saw him. You were the ones who were always visiting, always showering him with attention. Lies, my mom spat. You were always sneaking around, whispering in his ear, filling his head with nonsense about us. That's not true, I protested, my voice trembling. I never said a bad word about you to Grandpa Edward. He loved you. He always spoke highly of you. Then why would he leave everything to you? My dad demanded, his voice booming through the house. Why would he cut us out completely? I don't know, I said, my voice cracking. Maybe he just wanted to do something nice for me. Maybe he saw something in me that you didn't. Something in you? My mom scoffed. What could he possibly see in you? You're lazy, you're ungrateful, you're a disappointment. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew they didn't think highly of me, but to hear it said so bluntly, so cruelly, it hurt. It hurt more than I cared to admit. We gave you everything, my dad continued, his voice laced with bitterness. We provided for you, we educated you, we gave you a good life. And this is how you repay us? By stealing our inheritance? It's not stealing, I said, my voice barely a whisper. It's Grandpa Edward's will. It's his decision. I didn't ask for this. You didn't have to, my mom sneered. You just had to be the sweet, innocent granddaughter, the one who played on his emotions, the one who manipulated him into giving you everything. I didn't manipulate him, I cried, tears welling up in my eyes. I loved him, and he loved me. That's all there is to it. Love? My dad scoffed. Don't talk to us about love. You don't know the meaning of the word. All you care about is yourself, about your own selfish desires. The argument raged on, their accusations growing more vicious, their words more hurtful. They painted me as a villain, a conniving, manipulative gold digger who had stolen their rightful inheritance. They refused to listen to my explanations, to my pleas for understanding. They were blinded by their greed, their entitlement, their resentment. Finally, my dad's voice, cold and hard, cut through the noise. That's it, he said, his eyes narrowed. We're done. You're on your own now, Alexa. Don't expect any help from us. Don't expect any support. You've made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences. And with that, they turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, alone in the middle of the living room, my heart shattered, my mind reeling. I had lost my grandfather, and now I had lost my parents. I was completely alone. I sank to the floor, my tears flowing freely. I didn't understand. Why were they doing this to me? Why couldn't they see that I was hurting, that I needed them, that I loved them? Why did they have to be so cruel, so heartless, so selfish? The questions swirled in my mind, unanswered, unanswerable. I felt lost, confused, abandoned. The world, once familiar and safe, now felt hostile and threatening. I didn't know what to do, where to go, who to turn to. I was adrift, a lone ship tossed about in a stormy sea. Okay, so this whole inheritance thing had been a whirlwind. One minute I'm arguing with my parents, the next I'm sitting in a lawyer's office signing a bunch of documents I barely understand. It was surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. But in the middle of all this chaos, there was this nagging feeling. Something wasn't right. It started with little things. A persistent cough that wouldn't go away, a constant fatigue that made it hard to get out of bed, a weird ache in my side that came and went. I tried to ignore it, to chalk it up to stress, to the emotional roller coaster I'd been on, but it wouldn't go away. It just lingered. Then came the other symptoms, the loss of appetite, the nausea, the dizziness. I started losing weight, my clothes hanging loose on my once curvy frame. My reflection in the mirror became a stranger, her eyes shadowed, her skin pale, her smile strained. I knew I should see a doctor, but I kept putting it off. Partly because I was scared, partly because I didn't want to deal with it, partly because I was hoping it would just go away, but it didn't. It got worse. Finally, I couldn't ignore it any longer. I made an appointment with my doctor, a kind, elderly woman with a calming presence. I told her about the symptoms, the fatigue, the pain, the weight loss. She listened patiently, her brow furrowed with concern. She ordered a bunch of tests, blood work, scans, the whole 9 yards. The waiting was torture, each day filled with a growing sense of dread. I tried to distract myself, to focus on other things, but the fear was always there, lurking in the shadows, whispering doubts and anxieties. And then, the results came back. "Alexa," the doctor said, her voice gentle but firm, "I'm afraid the news isn't good. You have cancer." The word hit me like a ton of bricks. Cancer. Me? It couldn't be true. It was some kind of sick joke, a cruel twist of fate. I was 20 years old. I had my whole life ahead of me. I couldn't have cancer. But I did. The scans showed a large tumor in my abdomen, aggressive, fast-growing, already spreading to other organs. The doctor explained the treatment options, the surgery, the chemotherapy, the radiation, but her words were laced with a cautious pessimism, a hint of doubt that made my heart sink. "It's a tough battle, Alexa," she said, her eyes filled with sympathy, "but we'll fight it together. We'll do everything we can." I nodded numbly, my mind reeling. Cancer, surgery, chemo, radiation. The words swirled in my head, a terrifying mantra of pain and uncertainty. I felt like I was drowning, suffocating under the weight of this devastating diagnosis. Why me? Why now? It wasn't fair. I had just inherited a fortune, a chance to start a new life, to pursue my dreams, to finally be free. And now? This cruel twist of fate that threatened to take it all away. I felt a surge of anger, a burning resentment at the injustice of it all. Why did I have to go through this? Why couldn't I just have a normal life? A life without pain, without fear, without this constant threat hanging over my head? But the anger was quickly replaced by fear, a deep, primal fear of the unknown, of the pain, of the suffering, of the possibility of death. I didn't want to die. I wasn't ready. I had so much to live for, so much to experience, so much to give. I left the doctor's office, my legs shaky, my vision blurred with tears. The world seemed different now. Darker, colder, more threatening. The weight of the diagnosis pressed down on me, crushing my spirit, stealing my hope. I needed someone to talk to, someone to hold me, someone to tell me it would be okay. But I was alone. My parents had cut me off, their greed and resentment eclipsing any love or concern they might have had for me. I had no one to turn to, no one to share my fear, my pain, my despair. I walked down the street, my footsteps echoing in the empty sidewalk. The world moved on around me, oblivious to my suffering, my fear, my impending battle. I felt like an outsider, an alien, a ghost haunting the streets of my own life. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't let this defeat me. I wouldn't let cancer define me. I would fight. I would fight for my life, for my future, for my freedom, and I would do it on my own terms. The doctor's words echoed in my head, a relentless loop of doom. Aggressive, spreading, tough battle. I stumbled out of the clinic, the afternoon sun suddenly harsh, the city noises grating. I needed to tell someone. I needed my mom. Yeah, I know, they were being awful. The whole inheritance thing had turned them into greedy monsters. But still, cancer. This was different. This was life and death. Surely they'd care. Surely they wouldn't just abandon me. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers trembling. I dialed my mom's number, the familiar ringtone, a lifeline in the sudden storm of my emotions. It rang and rang and rang, then went to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached..." I hung up, my stomach twisting. Okay, maybe she's busy. I tried my dad. Same thing. Voicemail. I tried again, and again, and again. No answer. Panic started to rise, a choking sensation in my throat. They were ignoring me, even now, even with this. They were ignoring me. I sank onto a bench, the world tilting around me. How could they? How could they be so cold, so heartless? I sent a text, my fingers flying across the screen. "Mom, Dad, it's me. I just got some really bad news. Please call me back." I waited. Minutes stretched into an eternity. No reply. I tried again. Please, I need to talk to you. It's important. Still nothing. The weight of their silence was crushing. It was worse than the anger, worse than the accusations. It was a confirmation. A confirmation that they didn't care, that I didn't matter, that I was truly alone in this. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, wandering the streets, the city a blur of noise and movement around me. I tried calling them again and again, each unanswered ring a hammer blow to my already shattered heart. By the time the sun set, I was numb, empty. The diagnosis, the fear, the pain, it was all amplified by their absence. It was like they had not only cut me off financially, but emotionally too, like I was some kind of unwanted burden, a problem they didn't want to deal with. And that's when the anger returned, but this time, it was different. It wasn't just hurt, it was a cold, hard fury. They had shown their true colors. They had proven, beyond a doubt, that they were not the parents I needed, not the parents I deserved. And in a strange way, that realization was liberating. I didn't need them. I didn't need their approval, their support, their love. I had myself. And I had Grandpa Edward's legacy, a legacy of kindness, of generosity, of a love that transcended material wealth. And that was enough. It had to be. The phone felt heavy in my hand, like it was made of lead. I stared at the screen, at my parents' names, their smiling faces in the contact photo, a cruel mockery of the reality. They hadn't answered my calls, hadn't responded to my texts. They were probably off somewhere, sipping champagne on a yacht, oblivious to the storm raging in their daughter's life. But I had to tell them, not because I needed their comfort, not because I expected their sympathy, but because, well, because they deserved to know, because maybe, just maybe, somewhere deep down, they cared. Or maybe I just needed to say it out loud, to put it into words, to acknowledge the reality of my situation. I hit the record button, my voice trembling slightly as I began to speak. Mom, Dad, it's me, Alexa. I don't know if you'll ever hear this, but I need to say it. I need you to know. I paused, taking a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. I went to the doctor. A couple of weeks ago, I wasn't feeling well, and they found something. A tumor? Cancer? The words hung heavy in the air, the silence amplifying their weight. I could almost hear their shocked gasps, their disbelieving cries. Or maybe not. Maybe they wouldn't react at all. Maybe they'd just delete the message, their hearts as cold and unfeeling as their silence. It's bad, I continued, my voice cracking. They said it's aggressive, that it's spreading. I'm going abroad, I said, my voice firming with resolve. There's a clinic in Switzerland. They specialize in alternative treatments. It's a long shot, but it's my only shot. I wasn't sure if I believed in alternative treatments, in miracle cures, in defying the odds, but I had to try. I had to do something, anything to fight this, to claw back some control, some hope from the jaws of despair. I don't know if it will work, I said, my voice softening. I don't know if I'll come back, but I have to try. I have to fight. I paused, the silence heavy with unspoken emotions. Regret, sadness, anger, fear, but also a strange sense of peace, of acceptance, of a newfound clarity. I had been given a deadline, a countdown to the end, and in a strange way, it was liberating. I'm sorry, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I'm sorry for everything, for the arguments, for the hurt, for the disappointment. I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted you to see me, to love me, for who I am. I knew it was a futile plea, a desperate attempt to mend a broken bridge, but I had to say it. I had to let them know, even if they never heard it, even if they never cared. I love you, Mom and Dad, I said, my voice barely a whisper. And I'll miss you. And I hung up, the phone slipping from my grasp. Tears streamed down my face, a release of pent-up emotions, of grief, of fear, of love. But there was also a sense of closure, of a chapter ending, of a new beginning. I had said my goodbye. I had made my peace. And now, it was time to move on, to face the unknown, to embrace the challenge, to live the life I had left, with courage, with grace, with a newfound appreciation for every precious moment. The world awaited, and I was ready. Switzerland was different. Everything was clean, efficient, almost sterile. The clinic was nestled in the mountains, surrounded by snow-capped peaks and crystal-clear lakes. It was beautiful, peaceful, a world away from the drama and chaos of my life back home. The treatments were intense: IV drips, herbal concoctions, acupuncture, meditation, the whole holistic shebang. Some days I felt like a human pincushion, other days like I was brewing in a giant teapot. It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally, but there was also a strange sense of hope. Maybe this would work. Maybe this was the miracle I needed. The other patients were a mixed bag. Some were optimistic, their eyes shining with a fierce determination to beat the odds. Others were resigned, their bodies weary, their spirits broken. I was somewhere in between, hopeful, but also realistic. I knew the odds were stacked against me, but I wasn't ready to give up without a fight. The days were long, filled with treatments, consultations, and endless rounds of tests. I spent hours reading, writing in my journal, and staring out the window at the breathtaking scenery. I tried to connect with the other patients, to share stories, to offer support, but it was hard. We were all facing our own mortality, our own battles, our own fears. And then came the news. The doctor, a kind, gentle man with sad eyes, called me into his office. He spoke softly, his words measured, but the message was clear. The treatments weren't working. The cancer was too aggressive, too advanced. I had at most 6 months left. 6 months. The words echoed in the sterile room, a death knell tolling for my dreams, my hopes, my future. I felt a surge of panic, a desperate urge to scream, to cry, to rage against the unfairness of it all. But then something shifted within me. A calmness settled over me, a sense of acceptance, of a strange, unexpected peace. I had been given a deadline, a finite amount of time to live, to love, to experience. And in that realization, there was a strange sense of freedom. Freedom from the expectations, the pressures, the should-haves and could-haves. Freedom to simply be. I thanked the doctor, his kindness a balm to my wounded soul. I walked out of the clinic, the mountain air crisp and clean, the sun shining brightly on the snow-capped peaks. It was a beautiful day, a perfect day to be alive. And I was alive, for now, for 6 months, maybe more, maybe less. But for this moment, for this day, I was alive. And that was enough. I walked back to my room, my steps lighter, my heart strangely calm. I looked around at the sterile environment, the medical equipment, the reminders of my illness, and I knew, with a certainty that surprised even myself, that I didn't belong here. This wasn't how I wanted to spend my remaining time. I wanted to live, to truly live, to experience the world, to embrace the beauty, to connect with the people, to make memories that would last a lifetime, even if my lifetime was shorter than I had hoped. I packed my bags, a sense of purpose filling me. I would leave the clinic, the treatments, the sterile environment. I would travel, explore, adventure. I would live my life to the fullest, on my own terms, until the very end. The fear was still there, lurking in the shadows, but it no longer controlled me. I had accepted my fate, embraced my mortality, and in that acceptance, I had found a freedom, a joy, a peace that I had never known before. The world awaited, and I was ready to meet it with open arms, with a grateful heart, with a spirit that refused to be broken. Screw Switzerland. Okay, the mountains were pretty and the doctors were nice, but this whole sit around and wait to die thing wasn't really my style. I had 6 months, maybe less, time to make them count. First stop, Paris. Always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower, eat croissants, and pretend I was in a cheesy romantic comedy, except no romance, just me, myself, and my backpack. Turns out Paris is even more amazing than the movies. The city was a whirlwind of cobblestone streets, charming cafes, and breathtaking architecture. I climbed the Eiffel Tower, a bit scary but the view was worth it, wandered through the Louvre, Mona Lisa smaller than I thought, and even attempted to speak French. Epic fail, but the locals were surprisingly patient. Next up, Tokyo. Talk about a culture shock. Neon lights, bustling crowds, and vending machines that sell everything from hot coffee to live crabs. I explored ancient temples, sang karaoke in a tiny booth, surprisingly good at it, if I do say so myself, and even tried fugu, the poisonous blowfish. Didn't die, thankfully. The people were incredibly kind, always willing to help a lost tourist with a terrible sense of direction. Then, it was off to India. The colors, the smells, the sheer chaos of it all was an assault on the senses. I visited the Taj Mahal, seriously breathtaking, rode an elephant, a bit bumpy but fun, and learned to cook authentic Indian food. My curry game is now strong. I met a group of amazing women who ran a school for underprivileged girls, their strength and resilience inspiring me in ways I never imagined. After India, I needed some chill time, so I headed to Bali. Yoga on the beach, surfing lessons, more falling than surfing, but hey, I tried, and delicious fresh fruit smoothies. The Balinese people were so peaceful, so connected to nature, it made me rethink my whole stressed city girl vibe. From Bali, I went to, well, everywhere. Australia, snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef, holding a koala, almost getting eaten by a giant spider. Peru, hiking the Inca Trail, exploring Machu Picchu, learning about ancient civilizations. Tanzania, witnessing the Great Migration, camping under the stars, feeling incredibly small in the vastness of the savannah. Each place, each experience, was a revelation. I saw the world with new eyes, appreciating the beauty, the diversity, the sheer wonder of it all. I met incredible people, heard their stories, learned from their experiences. I tried new things, pushed my boundaries, discovered hidden strengths and passions I never knew I had. I wasn't just traveling, I was evolving, shedding the old Alexa, the one defined by her parents' expectations, her insecurities, her fears. I was becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone braver, someone more alive. The cancer was still there, a constant companion, a shadow lurking in the background. But it no longer defined me. It was a part of me, yes, but it wasn't all of me. I was more than my illness, more than my fears, more than my past. I was Alexa, the girl who was given 6 months to live and decided to spend them living. The girl who embraced the world, who found beauty in the unexpected, who connected with people from all walks of life. The girl who learned to appreciate the small moments, the simple joys, the everyday miracles. The world was a classroom, and I was an eager student, soaking up the knowledge, the experiences, the lessons. I learned about different cultures, different beliefs, different ways of life. I learned about compassion, about resilience, about the interconnectedness of all things. And most importantly, I learned about myself. I learned that I was stronger than I thought, braver than I believed, more capable than I ever imagined. I learned that I was worthy of love, of happiness, of a life filled with purpose and meaning. The journey wasn't always easy. There were days when the fatigue was overwhelming, when the pain was unbearable, when the fear threatened to consume me. But I pushed through, fueled by a newfound determination, a fierce desire to make the most of every precious moment. And as I traveled, as I explored, as I experienced, I felt a sense of peace settling over me. A peace that came from acceptance, from gratitude, from living a life true to myself. The world was a gift, and I was determined to unwrap it, to savor every moment, to leave my mark, however small, on this beautiful, messy, extraordinary planet. Okay, so traveling the world is amazing. Don't get me wrong. Seeing incredible sights, meeting awesome people, eating food I can't even pronounce, it's been the adventure of a lifetime. But, the real journey, the one that's been the most challenging, the most rewarding, has been the one inside me. It's weird how facing death can make you appreciate life. Like, really appreciate it. The small things, the everyday moments, the simple joys, they become so much more precious when you know your time is limited. Suddenly, a perfect sunset, a delicious meal, a kind word from a stranger, these things become miracles, tiny gifts in a world that can be both beautiful and brutal. And surprisingly, part of that appreciation has included my parents. Yeah, I know, sounds crazy, right? After everything they did, after the way they treated me, after their cold, heartless silence, how could I possibly forgive them? Well, I don't know if I've exactly forgiven them, but I've let go of the resentment, the anger, the hurt. It was like carrying around a heavy suitcase filled with all the bad things they did, all the pain they caused, and honestly, it was exhausting. It was weighing me down, preventing me from enjoying the present moment, from truly living my life. So I put the suitcase down. It wasn't easy. There were days when the anger would flare up, when the hurt would resurface, but I kept at it, reminding myself that holding on to the past wasn't hurting them. It was hurting me. It was stealing my joy, my peace, my precious time. And honestly, they're probably not even thinking about me. They're probably too busy with their fancy parties and their expensive things to even remember I exist, which in a weird way is okay. It's their loss. They're missing out on, well, on me, on the amazing, incredible, world traveling, soon to be gone me. Letting go of the resentment has freed me. It's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I can finally breathe, finally be myself, finally focus on what truly matters. And what matters, I've realized, isn't their approval, their love, their acceptance. What matters is my own happiness, my own peace, my own journey. I've learned to live in the present moment, to appreciate the beauty around me, the kindness of strangers, the simple joys of life, a good cup of coffee, a funny conversation, a breathtaking view. These are the things that make life worth living. And I'm determined to savor every single one of them. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how much time I have left. But I do know this. I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to live my life to the fullest, on my own terms, without regrets. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to love. I'm going to experience everything this world has to offer. And when my time comes, well, I'll be ready. I'll be ready to say goodbye, knowing that I lived a life filled with purpose, with passion, with joy. A life that was truly mine. Okay, so I'm in Morocco, sitting in a tiny cafe, overlooking the bustling marketplace, sipping mint tea and watching the world go by. Life is good. Different, definitely, but good. I've accepted my fate, embraced my journey, and honestly, I'm happy, content, at peace. And then my phone rings. It's a number I haven't seen in months, but I know exactly who it is. My parents. I hesitate for a moment, a flicker of annoyance, a hint of sadness crossing my mind. But then I take a deep breath and answer. Hello? Alexa? My mom's voice is tentative, almost unsure. Is that really you? Yeah, Mom, it's me. I say, my voice calm, even. No anger, no resentment, just acceptance. We, we've been trying to reach you, she says, her voice a little stronger now. We saw the news. Ah, the news. My travels have been pretty well documented online. The news? I ask, playing dumb. About, about your illness, she says, her voice dropping to a whisper. We're so sorry, Alexa. We had no idea. Right, no idea. Because they were too busy ignoring me, too busy being angry about the inheritance, too busy being, well, themselves. It's okay, Mom, I say, surprising even myself with my own calmness. It is what it is. We want to see you, she says, her voice pleading now. We want to be there for you. Be there for me? I repeat, a hint of irony creeping into my voice. Now? After everything? We were wrong, Alexa, my dad chimes in, his voice thick with emotion. We were so wrong. Please forgive us. Forgive you? I ask, my voice soft but firm. For what? For ignoring me, for cutting me off, for caring more about money than about your own daughter? There's silence on the other end. Then my mom speaks, her voice desperate. It doesn't matter anymore, honey. We'll inherit the money after you pass. Ah, there it is, the real reason for their sudden interest. The money, of course. No, Mom, I say, my voice steady. You won't be able to inherit anything. Won't be able to? She asks, her voice rising in panic. What do you mean, won't be able to? I'm donating it all to charity. I say, my voice clear and unwavering. Every last cent. The silence on the other end is deafening. I can almost hear their jaws dropping, their faces contorting with rage. You, you what? My dad finally manages to sputter. You want to give it all away? To charity? Yes, I say. I did. It's my money. I can do whatever I want with it. But, but we're your family, my mom cries. We need that money. We're in debt. You should have thought about that before, I say, my voice cold. Before you cut me off, before you ignored my calls, before you showed me once again that all you care about is money. We'll change, my dad pleads. We promise. Just give us the money. No, I say, my voice firm. I won't. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve a single cent. And that's why Grandpa Edward didn't leave it to you. He knew. He saw what you were capable of. He saw your greed, your selfishness, your lack of love. That's not true, my mom screams. We love you, Alexa. We always have. No, you don't, I say, my voice calm, even gentle. You love the idea of me. You love the money I represent, but you don't love me. Not really. We'll change, my dad repeats, his voice desperate. We promise. Just give us one more chance. No, I say, my voice final. You had your chance, and you blew it. I'm done. I'm done with the lies, the manipulations, the greed. I'm done with you. I hang up the phone, my hand steady, my heart at peace. It's over. I've said what I needed to say. I've made my peace. And now, I can finally move on. Their greed, their anger, their disappointment, it no longer matters. It's their problem, not mine. I've let it go. And in letting go, I've found a freedom I never thought possible. The world had shrunk, not in the literal sense, of course. It was still that massive, awe-inspiring place I'd spent the last few months exploring. But my world, my personal bubble, had become smaller, more intimate. It was filled with the faces and voices of people I'd met along the way, people who had become my chosen family. There was Kenji, the quiet, thoughtful Japanese artist I met in Kyoto, whose gentle spirit and quirky sense of humor had brought me so much joy. There was Anika, the fiery Indian activist I met in Mumbai, whose passion for social justice had ignited a fire in my own soul. And there was Javier, the charming Spanish musician I met in Barcelona, whose music had filled my days with laughter and song. They were with me now, gathered in a small villa overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. The sun was setting, painting the sky in a breathtaking canvas of orange, pink, and purple. We sat on the terrace, sipping wine, sharing stories, laughing, reminiscing. Remember that time in Tokyo when you tried to order a pizza in Japanese and ended up with a plate of squid? Annika chuckled, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Oh God, don't remind me, I groaned, burying my face in my hands. I still have nightmares about that. We laughed, the sound echoing through the warm evening air. It was a good sound, a sound of friendship, of shared experiences, of love. And that time in Bali when you tried to surf and ended up wiping out so spectacularly that you lost your bikini top? Javier chimed in, his grin wide and teasing. Okay, enough, I protested, my cheeks flushing. We're not going to rehash every embarrassing moment of my trip, are we? But they're the best moments, Kenji insisted, his eyes twinkling. We spent hours like that, sharing memories, telling stories, laughing until our sides ached. It was a celebration of life, a testament to the power of human connection, a reminder that even in the face of death, there was still joy, still laughter, still love. As the night deepened, the conversation turned more introspective. We talked about life, about death, about the things that mattered most. We shared our fears, our hopes, our dreams. And in that sharing, we found a deeper connection, a sense of belonging, a comfort that transcended words. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice trembling slightly. I'm scared of what's coming, of the pain, of the unknown. We're here with you, Alexa, Annika said, her voice soft but firm. We won't let you go through this alone. You've been so brave, Javier said, his eyes filled with admiration. You've taught us so much about life, about courage, about how to truly live. You've lived more in the past few months than most people do in a lifetime, Kenji added, his voice gentle. Their words were a balm to my soul, a reminder that I wasn't alone, that I was loved, that my life had mattered. And in that moment, the fear subsided, replaced by a sense of gratitude, of peace, of acceptance. The final scene unfolded like a dream. I was lying on a beach, the soft sand beneath me, the warm sun on my skin. The waves lapped gently at the shore, their rhythmic sound a soothing lullaby. The sky was ablaze with color, a breathtaking symphony of orange, pink, and purple. My friends were there, their faces etched with sadness, but also with love, with admiration, with gratitude. They held my hands, their touch a lifeline, a connection to the world, to the life I was leaving behind. I closed my eyes, breathing in the salty air, feeling the warmth of the sun, listening to the gentle sound of the waves. It was a perfect moment, a perfect ending. And then I was gone, peacefully, quietly, without pain. My spirit slipped away, carried on the wings of the wind, soaring above the ocean, towards the setting sun. My legacy wasn't about money or possessions or material things. It was about the life I had lived, the experiences I had embraced, the connections I had made. It was about the love I had given, the joy I had shared, the lessons I had learned. It was a legacy of strength, of resilience, of a spirit that refused to be broken, a legacy of a life lived to the fullest, on my own terms, until the very end. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in a final, glorious burst of color, I knew that I had found my peace, my freedom, my ultimate liberation.